The VR room was the best place to practice, and now that he had access to Logan's private server, it meant Quinn could also practice his shadow abilities freely. The first thing Quinn was going to do was have a look at the new tutorial video he had unlocked after learning the vampire martial arts. Phantom Punch tutorial. Hello there, the blonde man in a cheery voice said in the video. In my opinion, this is one of the most useful skills to have, but just a little warning, this skill seems to work better with beings with a high level of intelligence, namely humanoid creatures. When testing this against a beast, it has little to no effect. To perform this skill based on the system stats, you will need at least 15 points of agility and 10 points of charm. These are the minimum requirements. Now, as you increase your points into charm and agility, this skill will work even better. While in a fight, you will aim your punch in a certain direction to start. Before the first movement is made, your charm skill will take slight control of the user's mind. To them, an image will appear and make it look like the punch has continued heading in the initial direction. But in fact, this will be a phantom punch. While the user is dodging or trying to block it, the real blow will come from somewhere else. This skill works even better if you have high enough agility. You will be able to perform several phantom punches at once, confusing your opponent. But be careful. Just like with Daze, it has a chance of not working well. This is why I recommend you to increase your charm points when possible. He explained it by saying it should feel similar to when Quinn would use the Daze skill. He should gather that feeling again and try to focus it through his eyes. Then, using his strong will and the image in his head, he would be able to project a fist outward. This in turn would allow the opponent to see the same thing. After hearing the explanation, Quinn didn't think it would be too hard, but just practicing it, not using it against an opponent, he found out it was extremely difficult. If he projected thoughts to target the head and tried punching below, as soon as he thought too much about hitting the head, his fist would automatically hit upward. Still, Quinn wasn't the type to give up. As he repeated the move several times, he could slowly separate his thoughts and actions into two separate things. He didn't know whether it was because he was in the game or trying to split his thought into two, but he would often get headaches as he pictured himself using the charm ability while forcing the energy outward from his eyes. Your dedication has paid off. You have pushed your charm skill to the limit several times. Charm stat +1, charm 13. It was the first time a stat point had increased without him leveling up or consuming blood. The system was clear that it was a fact that Quinn had continuously pushed himself while trying to learn the skill. Switching servers. Blood Evolver is online. Matchmaking in progress. Opponent found. There were myriads of abilities that could help you work better in this field, but nothing could compare to the greatness of the human mind when it came to creative thinking and engineering, which led to the creation of these fields. Nate had gotten one of these said people to set up a system in which he would get notified when the Blood Evolver was online. Recently, he had also added the new user Zombie P to that list as well. While Nate was relaxing with his best friend Sam, as usual, he received a notification. Nate immediately headed off towards the capsule. Quinn had been matched up with another level 4 user, but unlike the ones he fought against previously. This user was also wearing beast gear around his chest. As he turned his head around, Quinn made sure to look him in the eyes, just as the video tutorial had said. He activated his charm the same way when he used the Daze skill. Now all he needed to do was project the thought strongly, using his mind of aiming to punch the head, while the real punch would come from below. Everything was going perfect so far, and he could imagine hitting the person in the head. Then his fist made contact, but instead of receiving feedback from hitting the body, the punch had been blocked with the other user's hand, which was guarding his face. No, I thought I did it perfectly. Why did my attack go for the head? Quinn thought. Quinn previously thought he had perfected the Phantom Punch, but using it with no opponent and using it against a real opponent were two different things. With the pressure to perform perfectly and with the enemy standing in front of him, his concentration lagged at some point, so his attack failed. Eventually, the match had ended, and Quinn unsurprisingly lost. Nate was speechless. He thought he was the only person who had beaten the Blood Evolver before, and the one he knew now was a lot stronger than before. Once again, Quinn went into the next match. Nate stayed and watched carefully, but it seemed to be nearly an exact copy of the last game. After watching 4 matches, the Blood Evolver had lost 4 times in a row. There were a few others who had become fans as well, and they were nearly just as disappointed as him with the results they were seeing right now. No one would usually lose a match without giving it everything they got, and in the last 4 games, Quinn didn't use a single skill other than the flash step and the failed phantom punch. After losing 5 matches in a row, the only person that kept on watching Blood Evolver's matches was Nate. He didn't know why, but he felt that there had to be a reason for all the strange actions that Blood Evolver did in the past matches. The reason for his thinking was the fact that Quinn had lost every game doing the same thing. Only an idiot would do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. As the next match started, Quinn now looked more confident than he did before. His opponent was a female. The ability for now was unknown, as the inspection skill didn't work in-game. Quinn rushed forward as usual, but this time, no attacks were aimed at him. When this happened, it usually meant the person he was going up against had a transformation or hardening ability, the perfect opponent for the Phantom Strike. Quinn lifted his fist and aimed for the woman's head. As she saw the punch, a large spike appeared on her face. If Quinn was to carry on moving forward, then the spike would go right through his hand. She could see the punch rushing forward, and about to go through the spike, a smile appeared on her face, but suddenly she felt pain in her stomach as she keeled over. Phantom punch skill successfully learned. The fist hadn't hit her head, but struck her stomach instead. Quinn continued using the phantom punch in this fashion, successfully landing hit after hit, while on the outside, Nate, who was watching the entire thing, was deeply confused. All he could see was Quinn's opponent forming spikes and blocking the attacks in the wrong places. It was clear where the punches were coming from, so why was she constantly blocking in the wrong place? The match had finally ended, and Quinn had been declared the winner, but Nate was even more confused now. However, after watching the Blood Evolver's next 3 games, and each one of them coming out in a victory in the same fashion, goosebumps started to appear all over his body. Once the system had confirmed Quinn that he had learned Phantom Punch, everything got a lot easier from then onwards. Instead of concentrating on the feeling like he did before, now all he had to do was think about the skill, and his mind would automatically do the work for him. Finally, the day had arrived. It was the weekend, and all the first-year students were told to gather inside the portal room once again. It was time to go through the orange portal. All the groups present, please raise their orange scanning devices, Dell said, as he raised the scanner for everyone to see. You will only need to point it at an object. You can see that on the screen. You can select the area or item that you want to scan. It will try its best to break down the information it has received and display it on the screen for you, although this is not the goal of the expedition. What you students need to do is look for things on the planet which have never been scanned before, and this includes beasts. In your teams, each newly scanned object will earn you points. If the item has been scanned before, you will receive no points. There is quite a range on these scanners. Before engaging in combat, it will scan every beast that is within your vision. The most useful thing about these scanners is that, even if they have never seen a beast before, it will be able to tell you what level the beast is at. After the explanation with the scanners was over, Dell went on to tell them how the expedition would work between the classes. Each class, together with their homeroom teacher, would be sent off to a certain area. When they reached their assigned space, the class would stay there for a while, allowing every one of the students to scan the area thoroughly. If they were to run into a beast with a tier higher than intermediate, they were advised to fall back and tell the teacher immediately. The homeroom teacher would then inform the generals, who would come to their aid as soon as possible. As soon as Dell's lecture was finished, the groups began making their final preparations. While Quinn was looking around, he noticed that Logan was already tinkering around with the scanner, no doubt making adjustments to the scanner's system. All of a sudden, he felt a soft touch on his shoulder, interrupting his observations. "Hey, do you need one of these if we're going outside?" Feck said as he waved a strange object in front of Quinn. It looked like a flask made out of silver. The only difference was that, on the facade of the flask, a skull that had 2 sharp fangs on the upper jaw was displayed. It was a strange design for Quinn. If you used a normal flask, the blood would spoil in a few days. However, this one is especially used within the circle of vampires to keep blood fresh, Fex explained. Vex then pulled out a similarly styled flask from the inside of his shirt and handed it straight over to Quinn. Finally, Del had begun to call each group into the portal. The group took a step forward as they prepared for what was to come in their orange portal expedition.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.